The fluorescent lights above the kitchen buzzed like angry wasps, their harsh glare making my already pounding headache worse. I pressed my palms against the cool stainless steel counter, trying to steady my breathing as the dinner rush roared around me like a violent storm. Plates clattered, chefs barked orders in overlapping languages, and somewhere in the chaos, someone had burned the garlic bread again. The acrid smell mixing with sweat, grease, and desperation. "Emma! Table 7 needs water." Marco's voice cut through the noise, sharp with impatience. I grabbed the pitcher with trembling hands, my fingers still aching from the double shift I'd pulled yesterday. 23 years old, working 3 jobs, and I still couldn't afford my mother's medication. The weight of it sat on my chest like a stone, making every breath a conscious effort. I was invisible here, just another struggling waitress in an upscale Italian restaurant in Manhattan's financial district, serving people who spent more on a single bottle of wine than I made in a week. The dining room was a different world. Soft amber lighting, cream-colored walls adorned with expensive art, tables draped in pristine white linen. The air smelled of aged wine, fresh basil, and money. I moved between tables like a ghost, refilling glasses, forcing smiles that never reached my eyes, my reflection in the polished surfaces showing a girl who looked far older than her years. Table 7 was near the window overlooking the street. An older couple barely glanced at me as I poured their water, their conversation about their vacation home in the Hamptons, washing over me like meaningless noise. I was turning to leave when the entire restaurant seemed to shift. The temperature dropped, or maybe it was just my imagination. But every head turned toward the entrance, conversations faltering mid-sentence like someone had pressed pause on the entire room. 3 men entered first, not customers. That much was immediately clear. They moved like predators, their eyes scanning the restaurant with mechanical precision, noting exits, counting people, assessing threats. Dark suits that probably cost more than my yearly rent, earpieces barely visible beneath perfectly trimmed hair. The one in front was built like a wall, his jacket unable to fully conceal the bulk beneath his left arm. Then he walked in. I should have looked away, should have busied myself with refilling water or clearing plates or any of the 1,000 mindless tasks that kept me safely invisible. But I couldn't. No one could. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of presence that made the spacious restaurant suddenly feel too small. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders that tapered to a narrow waist. But it wasn't the expensive clothes that made my breath catch. It was the way he wore them, the way he moved, like a king surveying his kingdom, utterly certain of his dominion over everything and everyone within it. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples, a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and masculine beauty, marred only by a thin scar that ran from his left eyebrow into his hairline. His skin was olive-toned, Mediterranean, and even from across the room I could see his eyes were an unusual shade, dark amber, almost gold in the soft lighting. Marco materialized instantly, practically bowing as he escorted them to the best table in the house, a private corner booth that I knew was supposedly booked for the entire week. The 3 guards positioned themselves strategically, one at a nearby table with a clear view of the entrance, another near the kitchen doors, the third standing just behind the booth with his hands clasped in front of him. The man, the one who commanded this small army, settled into the booth with fluid grace. He said something in Italian to Marco, his voice too low for me to hear clearly, but the sound of it rolled through the air like distant thunder, deep, smooth, and utterly confident. Marco bobbed his head repeatedly, then scurried toward the kitchen, nearly colliding with me in his haste. "You speak Italian, don't you?" he hissed, gripping my arm hard enough to leave marks. "My grandmother taught me, but I'm not. You're serving table 12. Now." His eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. "And Emma, whatever he wants, whatever he asks for, you get it. Understand? No mistakes." My stomach twisted. Who is he? But Marco was already gone, disappearing into the kitchen and leaving me standing there with the water pitcher still in my hand, my heart suddenly racing for reasons I couldn't quite name. I approached table 12 on unsteady legs, very aware of the 3 men watching my every move. Up close, he was even more devastating. The scar was the first thing I noticed. A violent slash that should have made him less beautiful, but somehow did the opposite, adding a dangerous edge to classical features. His hands rested on the table, large and elegant, but I could see the faint scars across his knuckles, the calluses that spoke of violence barely contained beneath the civilized veneer. He smelled like bergamot and cedar, expensive cologne mixed with something else, gunpowder, maybe, or leather. Something dark and masculine that made my pulse quicken despite every instinct screaming at me to run. Buonasera, I said, my voice barely steady. Posso offrirle qualcosa da bere? Can I offer you something to drink? His head snapped up. Those amber eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. For a long moment, he simply stared at me, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched until I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Lei parla italiano. His voice was even more hypnotic up close, each word precisely enunciated. You speak Italian. Sì, signore. My grandmother was from Napoli. Something flickered in those impossible eyes. Napoletana. Interessante. He leaned back in the booth, studying me with the same intensity his guards had used to assess the restaurant for threats. Come ti chiami? Emma, signore. Emma Rossi. He repeated my name like he was tasting it, rolling it on his tongue. Your grandmother taught you well. Your accent is almost perfect. Thank you, sir. I clutched my notepad, trying to ignore the way his gaze made me feel stripped bare, like he could see every secret, every fear, every desperate thought I'd ever had. Would you like to see a menu or... No menu. He waved one elegant hand dismissively. Tell the chef I want whatever he recommends. Something traditional. And bring me a bottle of the Brunello di Montalcino, the 2015 if you have it. I scribbled the order, my handwriting shaky. Of course. Will that be all? For now. I should have left then. Should have nodded and backed away and forgotten those amber eyes and the way they seemed to see straight into my soul. But my mouth betrayed me. Are you visiting New York or... The question tumbled out before I could stop it. Completely inappropriate, completely unprofessional. One dark eyebrow rose. Behind me, I could feel the guards stiffen, their attention sharpening to a razor's edge. But he smiled. Just barely. A curve of lips that was more dangerous than any weapon. Business, he said simply. I have interests here. The way he said interests made it sound like a threat. I fled to the kitchen, my face burning. Marco grabbed me the moment I entered. What did he say? What does he want? I relayed the order, and Marco went pale. The 2015 Brunello, that's $800 a bottle. And he wants Giuseppe to cook for him personally? He crossed himself quickly, muttering something in Italian that sounded like a prayer. Who is he? I asked again, more insistent this time. Marco looked at me like I'd just asked why the sky was blue. You really don't know. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. That's Dante Salvatore. He owns half the shipping companies on the East Coast. Restaurants, construction, waste management. If there's money in it, he has his fingers in it. The way he said it made it clear that shipping companies and waste management were euphemisms for something far darker. Is he... Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, Marco hissed. Just serve him, be polite, and pray he doesn't remember your face. But as I carried the wine back to table 12, as those amber eyes tracked my every movement, I had the sinking feeling that Dante Salvatore forgot nothing. I opened the bottle with shaking hands, performing the ritual of showing him the label, pouring a small amount for him to taste. He swirled it in the glass, inhaling deeply before taking a sip. His eyes never left mine. Perfetto, he murmured. You have steady hands, Emma Rossi. I didn't. They were trembling so badly I nearly dropped the bottle as I filled his glass. But I managed to set it down on the table without spilling, which felt like a small miracle. Your meal will be ready shortly, signore. Dante. The command in his voice was unmistakable. Call me Dante. Every instinct I had screamed danger. Men like this didn't ask waitresses to use their first names. They didn't look at poor girls with invisible futures like they were puzzles worth solving. They certainly didn't make your skin feel like it was on fire with just a glance. I should check on your food, Signor Salvatore, I said, keeping my voice professional even as my pulse raced. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. "Emma." I looked back. He was standing now, all 6 feet plus of lethal elegance, and suddenly the space between us felt both infinite and non-existent. "That bruise on your wrist." His eyes dropped to where my sleeve had ridden up, exposing the purple fingerprints Marco's grip had left. "Who did that?" The question was casual. The tone was anything but. "It's nothing. I'm clumsy. Bugiarda." "Liar." He said it softly, almost gently, but there was steel beneath the silk. "Someone hurt you." "Sir, I really need to." "Dante." Firmer this time. "And you will tell me who put their hands on you." Behind him, the guard with the wall-like build had shifted forward slightly, his hand moving to his jacket. The temperature in the restaurant seemed to drop another 10 degrees. "My manager," I heard myself say, the words coming out in a rush. "He grabbed my arm when he told me to serve you. He was just nervous." "It's fine." Dante's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "What is his name?" "Please, it's really nothing." He didn't mean his name. The command in his voice made my knees weak. This was a man accustomed to absolute obedience, to having his questions answered and his orders followed without hesitation. The veneer of civilization he wore was thin, and beneath it, I could sense something savage and utterly ruthless. "Marco," I whispered. "Marco Benedetti." He nodded once, a sharp, decisive movement. Then his hand reached out, and I froze as his fingers, warm, calloused, impossibly gentle, lifted my wrist. His thumb traced the bruises with a touch so soft it felt like a whisper. "No one," he said quietly, those amber eyes burning into mine, "touches what is mine." Before I could process that statement, before I could ask what he meant, or why my heart was trying to hammer its way out of my chest, he released me and settled back into the booth as if nothing had happened. "Bring my meal, Emma, and tell Marco I wish to speak with him before I leave." I practically ran to the kitchen, my wrist still tingling where he'd touched it, my mind reeling. The food was ready. Giuseppe had outdone himself, creating a feast of handmade pasta, veal, and sides that looked like art. I loaded the plates onto a tray with mechanical precision, trying to ignore the way my hands shook. When I returned to table 12, Dante was on the phone, speaking rapid Italian in a voice too low for me to catch more than fragments. But what I did hear made my blood run cold. "Yes. I want it done tonight. I don't care about his excuses. He made a mistake, and mistakes have consequences." He ended the call as I approached, his expression smoothing back into that mask of cultured sophistication, but I'd heard the ice in his voice, seen the predator behind the prince. I served his meal in silence, my mind screaming at me to stay away, to keep my distance, to remember that men like Dante Salvatore were poison wrapped in silk. But when I set down the last plate and turned to leave, his hand caught my wrist again, the same one Marco had bruised. "Stay," he said. "It wasn't a request. I have other tables. They can wait." He released my wrist but gestured to the booth across from him. "Sit with me, Emma Rossi. I find I don't like eating alone." Every rational thought I had told me to refuse, to make an excuse, to run as far and as fast as I could from this beautiful, dangerous man and the darkness that clung to him like a second skin. But I sat, and as those amber eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made breathing difficult, as that small, dangerous smile curved his lips, I realized I just made the most catastrophic mistake of my life. I just didn't know yet exactly how catastrophic it would be. The next morning, I woke with Dante Salvatore's face burned into my memory like a brand. I'd barely slept, tossing in my cramped studio apartment as sirens wailed outside, and my neighbor's television blared through paper-thin walls. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw amber eyes studying me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve, felt a ghost of his fingers on my wrist, heard that deep voice saying words that made no sense. What is mine? I wasn't his. I wasn't anyone's. I was just a broke waitress trying to survive in a city that chewed up girls like me and spit them out without a second thought. The restaurant didn't open until 4, but I had my morning shift at the coffee shop in Hell's Kitchen, followed by 3 hours of data entry for a company I'd never even seen the inside of, everything done remotely from my laptop at the public library. I stumbled through my tiny bathroom, splashing cold water on my face because the hot water heater had died again, and stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. Dark circles under green eyes. Pale skin stretched too tight over sharp cheekbones. My grandmother's Italian coloring had skipped me entirely. I'd inherited my Irish mother's fair complexion and my absent father's eyes. I looked exhausted, haunted. The bruises on my wrist had darkened overnight. 5 perfect fingerprints in varying shades of purple and yellow. I pulled on my coffee shop uniform. Black pants, white shirt, green apron, and was halfway out the door when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A car will collect you at 3:30 p.m. to bring you to work. Don't be late. D. My heart stopped, then started again, racing like a frightened rabbit. I stared at the message, reading it 3 times, 4, trying to make sense of it. How did he have my number? Why would he send a car? What did he want? I typed and deleted 5 different responses before settling on. That's not necessary. I can take the subway. The response came within seconds. The subway is beneath you. 3:30. Don't make me wait, Emma. My hands shook as I shoved the phone in my pocket. This was insane. I should block the number. Should tell Marco I couldn't work tonight. But I needed the money. My mother's medication cost $1,200 a month, and insurance covered barely half. The coffee shop paid minimum wage, the data entry gig even less. The restaurant was the only place I made decent tips, and missing a Friday night shift would cost me hundreds of dollars I couldn't afford to lose. I told myself that's why I didn't cancel. Why I went through my day in a fog, spilling coffee and making mistakes on spreadsheets, counting down the hours until 3:30 with a mixture of dread and something else I refused to name. At 3:15, I stood outside my building in my work clothes. Black dress, comfortable shoes, hair pulled back in a neat bun. The street was busy with afternoon traffic, hot dog vendors, and tourists studying their phones. Normal. Safe. Everything Dante Salvatore wasn't. At exactly 3:30, a black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the curb. The rear door opened from the inside. I should have run. Should have ducked into the subway entrance half a block away and disappeared into the underground maze where expensive cars and dangerous men couldn't follow. Instead, I got in. The interior smelled like leather and cedar. His scent. The man in the driver's seat was one of the guards from last night, the one who'd stood near the kitchen. He didn't speak, didn't look at me, just pulled smoothly into traffic. We didn't head toward the restaurant. My stomach dropped as the SUV navigated through Manhattan, heading uptown instead of downtown. The buildings getting progressively taller and more expensive. We stopped in front of a glass tower in Midtown, the kind of building with a doorman in a uniform and a lobby that looked like a 5-star hotel. "Wait here," the guard said, the first words he'd spoken. He climbed out, opened my door, and gestured for me to follow. "I don't understand. The restaurant is... Mr. Salvatore wants to see you first." Panic clawed at my throat. "I need to work. I can't..." "You'll work. After." His hand settled on my lower back, not pushing, but making it clear that refusing wasn't an option. The lobby was all marble and gold, with a massive chandelier that probably cost more than my entire building. The doorman nodded to my escort like he recognized him. Like dangerous men in expensive suits were routine visitors. We rode the elevator in silence, numbers climbing higher and higher until we reached the top floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment. I'd seen luxury before, served it, cleaned it, existed on its periphery like a ghost. But this was different. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, the city sprawling beneath us like Dante's personal kingdom. The furniture was modern and expensive, all clean lines and neutral colors. Art that I suspected was original hung on the walls. Everything was pristine, perfect, cold, except for the man standing by the windows, silhouetted against the afternoon sun. He turned as I entered, and the breath left my lungs. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, exposing muscular forearms. No tie, top 2 buttons undone, showing a triangle of tanned skin. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked younger like this, less like a marble statue and more like a man. A very dangerous man. Emma. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse. You came. Did I have a choice? The words came out sharper than I intended, fear making me bold. That dangerous smile curved his lips. No, but I appreciate you not making me come collect you personally. He gestured to a cream-colored sofa. Sit, we need to talk. I stayed standing. I need to get to work. Marco no longer works at Bellanotte. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. He resigned this morning, effective immediately. The room tilted. What? Why? Because I don't tolerate men who put their hands on women. Dante moved toward me with that predatory grace, each step deliberate, especially women under my protection. I'm not under your protection. I don't even know you. He stopped inches away, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell that intoxicating scent of bergamot and danger. You know enough. You're intelligent. I saw it in your eyes last night. You understand what I am. A criminal. The word escaped before I could stop it. Instead of anger, he laughed. A deep, rich sound that sent shivers down my spine. So honest. Most people are too afraid to speak the truth to my face. His hand reached up, and I flinched instinctively. He froze, something dark flashing through his eyes. I won't hurt you, Dolcezza. Never you. His fingers traced my jaw with impossible gentleness, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. This close, I could see flecks of gold in the amber of his eyes, could see the faint scar tissue on his left cheekbone, could count his heartbeats in the pulse visible at his throat. Why am I here? I whispered. Because from the moment you spoke Italian to me, from the moment I saw the intelligence in your eyes and the pride you carry despite your circumstances, I knew you were different. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and I couldn't stop the small gasp that escaped. Because I haven't been able to think of anything but you for 16 hours. Because I want you, Emma Rossi, and I always get what I want. I'm not something you can just take. No. His smile was pure sin. You're something I'll make come to me willingly. Before I could respond, before I could tell him how insane this was, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out with his free hand, still holding my face captive with the other, and his expression went cold. Excuse me. He released me and stepped away, answering in rapid Italian. Che cosa? Quando? What? When? I stood frozen, my face still tingling where he'd touched me, my mind screaming at me to run while he was distracted. But my feet wouldn't move. I watched as his jaw tightened, as violence flickered behind those amber eyes. Find him, he snarled into the phone. I don't care if you have to turn over every rock in the city. Find him and bring him to me alive. I want to look him in the eyes when He caught himself, glancing at me. Switched to Italian. Voglio che soffra. Lentamente. I want him to suffer. Slowly. He ended the call and turned back to me, his expression smoothing back into that cultured mask. But I'd seen beneath it now. I'd seen the monster. Business. He said simply. Nothing for you to worry about. Who are you looking for? I don't know why I asked. Didn't want to know, really. But the words came anyway. His eyes narrowed. Your Italian is better than you claimed. Not a question. An accusation. Heat crept up my neck. I understood some of it, clearly. He moved to a bar cart, poured amber liquid into a crystal glass. The man I'm looking for stole from me. A significant amount of money and something far more valuable. Trust. In my world, that betrayal has only one ending. Death. I said it flatly, all the air leaving my lungs. He took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving mine. You say it like you disapprove. I do. Even though this man's theft has consequences that ripple outward, even though his actions might have cost innocent people their livelihoods, their safety, he set down the glass. The world isn't black and white, Emma. It's 1,000 shades of gray, and men like me exist in the darkest ones to keep the lighter ones safe. That's a convenient justification for murder. Instead of anger, he looked almost pleased. There's that fire, that spine of steel hiding inside your fragile exterior. He closed the distance between us again. Do you want to know the truth? The real reason you're here? Yes. The man I'm looking for is named Vincent Caruso. 3 months ago, he embezzled $2 million from one of my businesses. But more importantly, He was sleeping with a woman, got her pregnant, promised her marriage, the whole fairy tale. His voice went cold. Then he disappeared with my money and left her alone, scared, carrying his child. My breath caught. Why do you care about her? Because she came to me begging for help finding him. Because she's 22 years old and terrified and has no one else to turn to. His hand cupped my cheek again, forcing me to look at him. Because I don't tolerate men who abandon women they've sworn to protect. There was something in his voice, something raw and painful beneath the ice. A story there. A wound that hadn't healed. Where is she now? The pregnant woman? Safe. In one of my properties with around-the-clock security. When I find Vincent, he'll pay for what he stole. Both the money and her trust. His thumb stroked my cheekbone. Do you still think I'm a monster, Dolcezza? I should have said yes. Should have pushed him away and demanded he take me to work or let me leave. But the way he looked at me, the gentleness in his touch that contrasted so violently with the darkness in his words, made my answer stick in my throat. I think you're dangerous, I whispered instead. I am. Especially to you. He leaned closer, his lips nearly brushing my ear. Because I'm going to make you need me, Emma. I'm going to become as essential to you as breathing. And then you'll understand that there's no escape from this. From me. From what we're going to become to each other. You're insane. But my voice shook, and we both knew it wasn't entirely from fear. Perhaps. He pulled back, and I immediately felt the loss of his heat. But let me make you an offer. Work for me. What? I need a translator. Someone I can trust in meetings with my Italian associates. Someone who understands both languages, both cultures. He named a monthly salary that made my knees weak. More than I made in 6 months at all 3 jobs combined. You'll work normal hours, have weekends off, health insurance for you and your mother. I stared at him. How do you know about my mother? That dangerous smile. I know everything about you, Emma. Your mother's illness, your 3 jobs, your student loans, the fact that you survive on protein bars and coffee because you can't afford real food. He moved to his desk, pulled out a folder, and handed it to me. I know you graduated top of your class in linguistics, that you were accepted to Columbia's graduate program but couldn't afford to attend, that you've been invisible your entire life, working yourself to death just to survive. The folder contained my entire life story, employment records, school transcripts, even my mother's medical bills. Violation crashed through me, followed by rage. You had me investigated? My hands shook as I threw the folder back at him. You have no right. I have every right to know about the woman I'm going to make mine. He said it like it was already decided, like I had no say in the matter. Take the job, Emma. Let me give you the life you deserve. I don't want your charity. It's not charity. I need someone with your skills. The fact that I want you in other ways is separate. He stepped closer again, backing me against the window. The glass was cold against my spine. But he was fire in front of me. Say yes. And if I say no? His hand pressed against the glass beside my head, caging me in. Then I'll wait. I'll court you properly, send you flowers, take you to dinner. I'll be patient. His other hand traced down my arm, leaving goosebumps in its wake. But we both know how this ends, Dolcezza. You feel it too. This pull between us, this inevitability. He was right. And I hated him for it. Hated the way my heart raced when he touched me. The way my body leaned toward him like a flower seeking sun. Hated that despite knowing what he was, what he did, I wanted to say yes. I need to think about it. You have until Monday. He released me, stepped back, and I could breathe again. Now, let me take you to work. You're already late, and I won't have them complaining about your punctuality. The drive to Bellinote was silent. I sat as far from him as possible in the back of the SUV, trying to process everything that had happened. The job offer, the investigation, the pregnant woman, and the man who'd betrayed her. The way Dante looked at me like I was already his. When we arrived at the restaurant, he walked me to the door, his hand possessive on my lower back. The hostess's eyes went wide when she saw us together. Inside, I could see the staff staring. Monday, Emma, he murmured in my ear. Give me your answer Monday." Then he was gone, disappearing into the SUV like a dark prince returning to his kingdom, and I was left standing on the sidewalk with my heart in my throat and my entire world tilted on its axis. The shift passed in a blur. Everyone wanted to know about Dante, about what had happened, but I deflected and dodged until they finally left me alone. My tips were astronomical. Word had apparently spread that I was Dante Salvatore's girl, and customers treated me like I was suddenly worth noticing. I hated it. Hated being visible for the wrong reasons. Hated that he'd marked me somehow, claimed me in front of everyone without my permission. But when I counted my tips at the end of the night, over $800, more than I'd made in a month, I couldn't deny the temptation. His job offer would solve everything. My mother's medication, the student loans, the constant terror of one broken pipe or medical emergency away from homelessness. All I had to do was sell my soul to the devil. I was walking to the subway when the black SUV pulled up beside me again. "Get in, Miss Rossi." Different guard this time, but same command. "I can get home on my own. Mr. Salvatore insists." The door opened. I should have refused, should have walked away. But it was nearly midnight, and the subway was 30 minutes of being invisible in a metal tube with people who looked through me like I didn't exist. The SUV was warm and safe and smelled like him. I got in. The driver didn't take me home. Instead, we stopped in front of an all-night pharmacy in a better neighborhood than mine. "Mr. Salvatore asked me to ensure you pick up your mother's medication," the guard said, handing me a credit card. "Use this. Get a 3-month supply." I stared at the black card with Dante's name embossed in silver. "I can't." "You can, and you will. He'll be very displeased if you refuse." The guard's expression softened slightly. "He's not a patient man, Miss Rossi, but he's a generous one. Let him do this." Tears burned my eyes as I took the card, as I walked into the pharmacy and used someone else's money to buy the medication that kept my mother alive. The pharmacist didn't even blink at the price tag. $1,200 that would have taken me weeks to scrape together. When I returned to the SUV, there was a bag on the seat. I opened it to find fresh fruit, good cheese, bread from an Italian bakery, protein that wasn't processed, real food, the kind I hadn't been able to afford in months. The note inside was written in elegant script. "You can't take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself. Eat." I cried the entire drive home, the guard pretending not to notice. And when I crawled into bed at 2 a.m, exhausted and confused and terrified, I knew I was going to say yes. Not because I wanted to, not because it was smart or safe or right, but because Dante Salvatore had seen me, really seen me, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible anymore, even if that visibility might destroy me. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering against my window and my phone buzzing with a message I'd been expecting and dreading in equal measure. "My driver will collect you at 9 a.m. Bring your answer." I stood in front of my closet, staring at the meager collection of clothes hanging there. Everything was worn, faded, wrong for whatever world I was about to step into. Finally, I settled on my only pair of dress pants and a cream blouse that my mother had bought me for college interviews a lifetime ago. The SUV arrived exactly at 9. Same guard, same silence. But this time we drove to a different building. A renovated warehouse in Tribeca with his company's name discreetly displayed on a bronze plaque, Salvatore Imports. Inside was nothing like the cold penthouse. This was a working office, people moving with purpose, phones ringing, the smell of coffee and paper. But the moment I entered with my escort, everything stopped. Heads turned. Conversations died. They looked at me like I was a creature from another world, and perhaps I was. The guard led me to an elevator that required a key card, took me to the top floor. The doors opened into a reception area, where an elegant woman in her 50s sat behind a mahogany desk. "Miss Rossi," she said with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mr. Salvatore is expecting you. Please, go right in." His office was massive, with windows overlooking the Hudson River, and furniture that screamed power and money, but my eyes went immediately to the man behind the desk. Dante stood as I entered, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. He wore navy today, with a crisp white shirt and a tie the color of fresh blood. Every inch the businessman, except for those predator's eyes that tracked my every movement. Emma. He came around the desk, took my hand, brought it to his lips. The kiss was brief, formal, but it sent electricity racing up my arm. You look beautiful. I look poor, I said bluntly, pulling my hand away. Let's not pretend otherwise. That dangerous smile. I've arranged for a stylist to meet with you this afternoon. You'll need appropriate attire for business meetings. I haven't said yes yet, haven't you? He gestured to a leather chair. Sit. Let's discuss terms. I sat because my knees were shaking. He returned to his desk, pulled out a contract, and slid it across to me. Your salary, as discussed. Health insurance that covers both you and your mother. I took the liberty of reviewing her medical needs with my personal physician. He believes he can reduce her medication costs significantly through a different treatment protocol. My throat tightened. Why are you doing this? Because I can. Because I want to. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Because every time I close my eyes, I see you struggling under a weight no one should carry alone. Because it offends me that someone with your intelligence, your fire, has been made invisible by a system designed to keep people like you in their place. People like me. Poor. Forgotten. Disposable. He said it without malice, just cold fact. The world is designed to crush people like you, Emma. I'm offering you a way out. At what price? I met his eyes. What do you really want from me? He was silent for a long moment, those amber eyes boring into mine. Finally he stood and came around the desk, leaning against it directly in front of me. The truth? Everything. His hand cupped my jaw, tilting my face up. I want you in my office during the day and in my bed at night. I want to dress you in silk and diamonds, want to see you shine the way you were meant to. I want to own every smile, every laugh, every desperate little sound you make when I touch you. Heat flooded through me, followed immediately by anger. I'm not a possession. No. You're something far more valuable. His thumb brushed my lower lip. You're a choice I'm making. The question is whether you'll choose me back. I should have slapped him, should have walked out, but his touch made thinking impossible, made every rational argument dissolve like sugar in rain. This is insane, I whispered. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're loyal. You work yourself to death for a mother who barely remembers your name half the time. I know you're proud. You could have taken easier paths, sold yourself in different ways, but you chose dignity over comfort. I know you're intelligent, stubborn, and so goddamn beautiful it makes my chest ache. Pretty words from a dangerous man. I never claimed to be anything else. He released me, pulled something from his desk drawer, a velvet box. But I protect what's mine, Emma, and if you say yes, you'll never be invisible again. You'll never struggle or starve or have to choose between your pride and your survival. He opened the box. Inside was a key. What is this? An apartment, 3 blocks from here, in your name. 2 bedrooms so your mother can live with you, accessible for her wheelchair. I've already arranged for in-home care, nurses, physical therapy, whatever she needs. The room spun. I can't accept this. You can. You will. He took the key out, pressed it into my palm. Sign the contract, Emma. Let me take care of you. Tears burned my eyes because he was offering everything I'd ever wanted wrapped in a package I knew would destroy me. Because this wasn't generosity. It was ownership. He was buying me, piece by piece, making me dependent on him until I couldn't imagine life without him, and the terrifying part was how much I wanted to let him. I need a guarantee, I heard myself say. I'll work for you, but nothing else. You don't own me, Dante. Not my body, not my choices, just my skills as a translator. Something dark flickered in his eyes. For now? Forever. Those are my terms. He was silent for so long I thought he'd refuse. Then he reached for the contract, pulled out a pen, and added a handwritten clause. Employee maintains full autonomy over personal decisions. This contract covers professional services only. He signed it with a flourish, then handed me the pen. Sign, Emma. Stop being invisible. Let me show you what life can be when someone actually sees you. My hand shook as I took the pen. This was a mistake. Everything in me screamed it was a mistake. But I thought of my mother in that cramped apartment, thought of my own exhaustion, thought of a life where I didn't have to fight every single day just to survive. I signed. Dante's smile was triumphant and terrifying. He took the contract, locked it in his desk, then pulled me to my feet. "Welcome to my world, Dolcezza." His lips brushed my forehead, gentle despite the possession in his eyes. "Now, let me show you exactly what you've agreed to." The rest of the morning was a blur. He introduced me to his staff, mostly men with hard eyes and harder hands, who nodded respectfully, but watched me like I was a ticking bomb. He showed me my office, smaller than his, but still luxurious, with a view of the river and furniture that cost more than my yearly rent. Then came the meetings. I sat beside him as Italian businessmen filed in, discussing shipments and routes and numbers that seemed astronomical. My job was simple: translate, clarify nuances, help navigate cultural differences. But I quickly realized these weren't normal business deals. The way they spoke, the careful euphemisms, the coded language, they were discussing things that had nothing to do with legitimate imports. During a break, I confronted him. "You're smuggling something. What is it? Drugs? Weapons?" He looked at me with something like disappointment. "I told you the world is gray, Emma." "Did you think I meant it metaphorically?" "Answer the question." "Art, antiquities, things that belong to Italy, stolen by museums and private collectors. I return them home." He said it like it was noble. And yes, sometimes I facilitate other shipments. But never drugs. Never anything that harms innocents. I have lines I don't cross. That's still illegal. So is letting people die because they can't afford medication. So is a system that keeps brilliant women serving coffee while mediocre men run companies into the ground. His hand framed my face. "Don't judge me by laws written by people who've never struggled a day in their lives." Before I could respond, his phone rang. He answered in Italian, his expression going cold. "When?" Pause. "Where did they find her?" Longer pause. "Santo Dio, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call, his jaw tight with rage. "What happened?" "Vincent's girlfriend. The pregnant woman I told you about. She's in the hospital. Someone attacked her." My blood ran cold. "Is she okay?" "She will be. But the baby..." He didn't finish, just grabbed his jacket. "Come with me." "Why?" "Because she's terrified and alone, and she'll need another woman there." His eyes met mine. "And because I want you to see exactly why I do what I do." The hospital was in Brooklyn, a clean but tired-looking building that served the neighborhood's working poor. Dante's arrival caused a stir. Nurses straightened. Doctors appeared. And suddenly the pregnant woman was in a private room with round-the-clock security. Her name was Sophia. She was barely 22, with dark hair and terrified eyes, her arm in a sling and bruises covering her face. "Dante," she sobbed when she saw him. "They said the baby might not..." He sat on the edge of her bed, took her hand with surprising gentleness. "Shh. The doctors are doing everything they can. Tell me what happened." Between sobs, the story came out. 2 men had grabbed her outside her building, demanding to know where Vincent was. When she couldn't tell them, they'd beaten her and left her in the alley. Dante's face could have been carved from stone. "Did you recognize them?" "No. But one of them, he had a tattoo. A snake. On his neck." Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Recognition. Rage. "Rest now. Emma will stay with you." He stood, gestured for me to follow him into the hallway. "I know who sent them," he said quietly. "A rival who's been trying to move into my territory. He must have found out about Sophia, thought he could use her to get to Vincent or to me." "What are you going to do?" The look he gave me was pure predator. "What I always do to people who hurt women under my protection. I'm going to make them wish they'd never been born." He left me there with Sophia, with 2 guards outside the door, and disappeared into the rainy afternoon like an avenging angel. I stayed with Sophia for hours, holding her hand through contractions the doctors were trying to stop, listening to her sob about Vincent and the promises he'd made. And I understood, finally, why Dante was so obsessed with finding him. This wasn't just about money. It was about a man who'd abandoned the woman carrying his child, left her vulnerable to this. When the doctors finally stabilized her, when she fell into an exhausted sleep, I stepped into the hallway and called Dante. "How is she?" His voice was tight, stable, the baby too for now. I took a breath. What did you do? What needed to be done? The men who hurt her won't hurt anyone else. Did you kill them? Would it bother you if I had? I thought about Sophia's terrified face, her broken sobs, the baby fighting to survive. No, I whispered. It wouldn't. His sharp intake of breath. You understand now why I am what I am. I understand that the world isn't black and white, that sometimes the monsters are the men in suits who let women like Sophia fall through the cracks. My voice hardened. Find Vincent, Dante. Make him pay. I will. I promise you that. A pause. My driver will take you to your new apartment. The movers have already transferred your and your mother's belongings. Get some rest, Emma. Tomorrow we continue. The call ended, and I stood in that hospital hallway, staring at my reflection in the dark windows. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who'd served Dante Salvatore 3 days ago. That woman had been invisible, powerless, afraid. This woman had power now, had made a deal with the devil and discovered that sometimes the devil protected the people everyone else forgot. And as I rode home to an apartment I hadn't earned but desperately needed, I realized I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. I was Dante Salvatore's now, not his possession, not yet, but his employee, his responsibility, his protected. And God help me. I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. The apartment was everything he'd promised and more. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. My mother sat in her wheelchair by the window, a nurse beside her, looking more alert than I'd seen her in months. Emma? Her voice was fragile, confused. Where are we? I knelt beside her, taking her thin hands. Home, Mama. Our new home. Over the next few weeks, I fell into a rhythm that felt both surreal and dangerously comfortable. I'd wake in my own bedroom, with a real mattress and blackout curtains, make coffee in a kitchen with appliances that actually worked, then ride to work in Dante's car. The office became familiar. I learned the names of his men, Marco the enforcer, Alessandro the accountant, Giuseppe who handled logistics. I sat in meetings and translated conversations about art shipments and territory disputes, carefully not thinking too hard about what it all meant. And Dante? Dante was everywhere. He'd appear in my office doorway with espresso from the cafe he knew I liked. He'd brush past me in the hallway, his hand lingering on my lower back. He'd call me into his office for consultations that felt more like excuses to be near me. But true to the contract, he never pushed, never demanded more than I'd agreed to give. It was driving me insane. You're playing with fire, my mother said one evening, during one of her lucid moments. She was having more of those now, thanks to the new treatment Dante's doctor had prescribed. Men like him don't let go once they decide they want something. I'm just his employee. Her laugh was bitter. Keep telling yourself that, baby girl. But I see how you come home, how you smile at your phone when he texts, how you dress more carefully now, do your makeup even though you claim it's just professional. She was right, and I hated it. Somewhere between the daily coffees and the lingering looks, and the way he said my name like a prayer, I'd started wanting things I had no business wanting. It all came to a head 3 weeks after I'd signed the contract. I was working late, finishing translations for a meeting the next day, when Dante appeared in my doorway. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves, and there was something dark and hungry in his eyes that made my breath catch. Everyone's gone home, he said quietly. It's just us. I should finish. It can wait. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled me to my feet. Do you have any idea how difficult these weeks have been? Seeing you every day, wanting you every second, forcing myself to keep my distance? Dante, I dream about you, Emma, every night. I wake up hard and aching, imagining all the ways I want to touch you, taste you, make you mine. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my face up. Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me I'm alone in this madness. I should have lied, should have stepped back, reminded him of our agreement, but his scent surrounded me. His heat called to something desperate and hungry inside me, and I was so tired of pretending. "You're not alone," I whispered. His groan was pure surrender. His mouth crashed onto mine, hungry and demanding, and I opened for him like I'd been waiting my entire life for this kiss. He tasted like whiskey and sin, his tongue claiming mine with an expertise that made my knees weak. His hands were everywhere, in my hair, on my waist, sliding down to cut my ass and lift me onto my desk. Papers scattered, my laptop nearly tumbled to the floor, but neither of us cared. I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him closer, desperate for more. "Emma," he groaned against my lips. "Tell me to stop. Tell me you don't want this. Don't stop." I pulled at his tie, fumbling with the buttons of his shirt. "Please, Dante, don't stop." He made a sound like a man breaking, his hands sliding under my blouse, finding the curve of my breast through my bra. I arched into his touch, gasping, and he swallowed the sound with another devastating kiss. His phone rang. We both froze. He pulled back slightly, his breathing ragged, conflict clear in his eyes. "Ignore it," I begged, pulling him back. But it rang again, and again. With a curse that would have made a sailor blush, he pulled away completely and answered, "This had better be life or death." Whatever he heard made his expression go deadly cold. "Where?" Pause. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. He ended the call, his jaw tight with frustration and rage. "They found Vincent." I straightened my clothes with shaking hands. "Where?" "Atlantic City, in a casino, living well on my money while Sophia fights for her baby's life." He ran a hand through his hair, and I could see the effort it took him to shift gears, to become the cold, dangerous man instead of the one who'd been kissing me like I was oxygen. "I have to go. Now. Take me with you." His eyes snapped to mine. "Absolutely not. You said you protect what's yours. Sophia is yours to protect, and I've been sitting with her every day. She trusts me. When you bring Vincent back, she'll need someone there." I stood, straightening my spine. "Take me with you, Dante." For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then that dangerous smile curved his lips. "You're not just translating anymore, are you, Dolcezza? You're becoming part of this world. Maybe I already am." The drive to Atlantic City took 2 hours in Dante's private car, a bulletproof Mercedes with 3 escort vehicles. I sat beside him in the back, very aware of the guns his men carried, of the tension radiating from Dante like heat from a furnace. "When we find him," Dante said quietly, "stay in the car. What I'm going to do, you don't need to see it." "What are you going to do?" "Make him understand the consequences of his choices." His hand found mine, squeezed gently. "He hurt Sophia, left her alone and vulnerable. In my world, that debt must be paid." We arrived at the Borgata just after midnight. Dante's men had already located Vincent, a private poker room on the high roller floor. We took the elevator up, Dante's presence making the other passengers nervous enough to exit early. The casino was all lights and noise, the smell of cigarette smoke and desperation. Dante moved through it like a shark through water, people instinctively clearing a path. His men flanked us, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. The poker room was behind a velvet rope, guarded by casino security. One look at Dante, one whispered word from Marco, and we were through. Vincent Caruso sat at a table with 4 other men, a pile of chips in front of him and a drink in his hand. He was handsome in a slick way, early 30s, wearing an expensive suit that my money had probably paid for. He looked up as we entered, his face going white. "Dante, I can explain. Stand up." Dante's voice was arctic. "Now." Vincent stood on shaking legs. The other players quickly excused themselves, recognizing danger when they saw it. Within seconds, the room was empty except for Vincent, Dante, his men, and me. "I was going to pay you back," Vincent stammered. "I just needed time to... Where's my money? Most of it's gone. But I can get it back, I swear. Just give me a few months." Dante moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was standing across the table, the next he had Vincent pinned against the wall, one hand around his throat. "Sophia is in the hospital," Dante said softly, the quiet more terrifying than any shout. "Your baby might not survive. Do you know why? Because men came looking for you, and when they couldn't find you, they took their frustration out on her." Vincent's eyes widened with what might have been genuine shock. What? No. I didn't know. You didn't know because you ran like a coward. You got her pregnant, promised her a future, then disappeared. Dante's hand tightened. Men who abandon their responsibilities to women don't deserve to breathe my air. Please. Vincent choked out. I'll make it right. I'll marry her, take care of the baby. Now you want to make it right? When there's a gun to your head? Dante released him with disgust. You don't get to decide anymore, Vincent. Your choices are over. He gestured to Marco, who produced a phone and thrust it at Vincent. Call her. Tell her you're sorry. Beg for her forgiveness. With shaking hands, Vincent dialed. I heard Sophia's frightened voice answer, heard Vincent's sobbing apology, his promises to make things right. It was pathetic and desperate and probably sincere in that moment. When the call ended, Dante took the phone back. Marco, take him to the car. We're bringing him back to New York. What are you going to do to me? Vincent's voice cracked. Dante's smile was cold. That depends on Sophia. If she wants you dead, you die. If she wants you to live and be a father to your child, you'll work for me until every penny is repaid, and you'll marry her and be the man you should have been from the start. He leaned closer. But if you ever run again, if you ever make her cry, if you're anything less than the perfect husband and father, I'll make you wish I'd killed you tonight. Understood? Vincent nodded frantically, and Marco dragged him out. I stood there, my heart pounding, staring at Dante. This man who kissed me like I was precious, who bought my mother's medication and gave us a home, had just threatened another man's life with the casualness of ordering coffee. And I wasn't horrified. I was impressed. Emma. He turned to me, his expression softening. I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't be. I crossed to him, placed my hand on his chest. You gave him a choice, more mercy than he deserved. You're not afraid of me. It wasn't a question, but there was wonder in his voice. I'm terrified of you, I admitted. But not because I think you'll hurt me, because of how much I want you to. His eyes darkened. Careful, dolcezza, say things like that, and I'll forget every promise I made about keeping my distance. Maybe I want you to forget. The air between us crackled with tension. He pulled me against him, his mouth finding mine again, and this time there was no phone to interrupt, no emergency to pull us apart, just his hands in my hair, his body hard against mine, and the terrifying, exhilarating knowledge that I was falling for a man who could destroy me. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Come home with me tonight, he whispered. Not to my bed, not yet, but come home with me. Let me hold you. Let me show you that I can be gentle. I should have said no, should have maintained that professional distance we'd pretended existed. But I was tired of pretending, tired of fighting what we both wanted. Yes, I breathed. Take me home. And as we left the casino, his arm around my waist and his men clearing the path, I realized I'd crossed another line. This wasn't just about survival anymore, or money, or escaping invisibility. This was about wanting Dante Salvatore with every fiber of my being, despite, or maybe because of, the darkness that lived inside him. And God help me, I didn't want to go back. Dante's penthouse felt different this time, less like a cold display of wealth, and more like a sanctuary. He poured us both wine, then led me to the massive windows overlooking Manhattan's glittering lights. I bought this place 5 years ago, he said quietly, standing behind me, not touching but close enough that I could feel his heat. After my father died and I took over the family business, everyone said I should live in the mansion in Brooklyn where I grew up, but I couldn't. Too many ghosts. What kind of ghosts? His hand settled on my shoulder, gentle. My father was a hard man, brilliant, ruthless, respected. But he loved my mother with an intensity that bordered on obsession. When she died giving birth to my sister, who died with her, something in him broke. His voice went rough. He became cruel, paranoid. He saw betrayal everywhere, trusted no one. By the end, even I couldn't reach him. I turned to face him, saw the pain etched in those amber eyes. Is that why you care so much about Vincent and Sophia? Because of what happened to your mother, partially. He cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheekbone. My mother was alone when she went into labor. My father was handling a business emergency, some rival who'd disrespected him. By the time he got to the hospital, she was already gone. His jaw tightened. He spent the rest of his life regretting that he chose revenge over her. I swore I'd never make that mistake. You're not like him, Dante, aren't I? I'm obsessive, possessive. I see something I want and I take it, consequences be damned. His other hand slid into my hair. I've been trying to be patient with you, trying to let you come to me willingly. But every day is torture, Emma. Every smile you give me, every time you say my name, I want to lock you away where no one else can see you, touch you, have you. His words should have terrified me. Instead, they sent heat pooling low in my belly. Then why don't you? Because you're not a possession to be locked away. You're a woman who deserves to choose. His forehead touched mine. So I'm asking you to choose, Dolcezza, not as my employee, not because I've given you things you needed, but because you want this, want me, as much as I want you. My heart pounded so hard I was certain he could hear it. I'm scared. Of me? Of this? Of how you make me feel? Of losing myself in you and never finding my way back? I gripped his shirt, anchoring myself. I've been invisible my whole life, Dante. And now you see me so clearly, it's like standing naked in the sun. What happens when you get bored, when the novelty wears off and you move on to the next woman who catches your eye? His laugh was dark and utterly humorless. You think I could get bored? Emma, I've had beautiful women throw themselves at me my entire adult life. Models, actresses, socialites who could give me everything but a challenge. You know what they all had in common? He tilted my face up, forcing me to meet his eyes. None of them made me feel anything. None of them saw past the money and power to the man underneath. None of them challenged me, stood up to me, called me a criminal to my face with fire in their eyes. I did do that, I admitted with a shaky laugh. You did. And I've been half in love with you since that moment. His thumb traced my lower lip. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done terrible things. I'll do terrible things again, but I swear to you on my mother's grave that I will never hurt you, never betray you, never make you regret choosing me. Tears stung my eyes. Promise me something else, anything. Promise you won't make me invisible again. That even when the passion fades, even when we've been together so long we know each other's every thought, you'll still see me, really see me. His kiss was tender, reverent, nothing like the desperate claiming from earlier. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing with something that looked like devotion. I promise that every day for the rest of your life, you'll wake up knowing you're the most important person in my world, that I'll spend every moment proving that you're not just seen, you're treasured. His hands framed my face. Now stop being afraid and let me love you the way you deserve. This kiss was different, slower, deeper, a claiming that wasn't about possession but about connection. I melted into him, letting him lead, trusting him despite every reason I had not to. He lifted me easily, carried me to his bedroom, a space I'd never seen, all dark colors and masculine elegance. The bed was enormous, and he laid me on it with such care I might have been made of glass. Tell me if you want to stop, he murmured against my lips as his hands found the buttons of my blouse. Anytime, for any reason. Your choice, Emma. Always your choice. But I didn't want to stop. I helped him undress me, then explored the planes of his body as he shed his own clothes, revealing golden skin marked with scars that told stories of violence survived. He was beautiful and brutal and utterly focused on me, his hands and mouth worshipping every inch of skin he uncovered. When he finally settled between my thighs, when he whispered my name like a prayer and made us one, it felt like coming home to a place I'd never known existed. He moved with controlled power, each thrust deliberate, watching my face for every reaction, adjusting to give me exactly what I needed. Look at me, he commanded when I tried to close my eyes, overwhelmed by sensation. I want to see you, all of you. So I looked, and what I saw in his eyes as we moved together took my breath away. Not just desire, though there was plenty of that, but tenderness, devotion, something that looked dangerously like love. When we finally shattered together, his name on my lips and mine on his, it felt like a promise, a claiming that went both ways. Afterward, he held me against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "Move in with me," he said quietly. "Bring your mother, bring the nurses. I have 10 bedrooms in this place, and I rattle around like a ghost. Fill it with life, Emma. Fill it with you. That's moving fast. I'm 42 years old. I've waited my entire life for you. I don't want to waste another day." He tilted my chin up. "But if you need time, I'll wait. I'm patient when it matters." I thought about my new apartment, beautiful but lonely, thought about waking up in his arms every morning, falling asleep to the sound of his breathing every night, thought about building a life with this complicated, dangerous, devoted man. "Ask me again in a month," I said finally. "Let's do this right. Date me. Court me. Let me be sure." His smile was pure sunshine, transforming his face. "A month. I can be patient for a month." He kissed my forehead. "But Emma, I'm still going to spoil you shamelessly. Still going to send you flowers and take you to dinner and generally make every man in New York jealous that you chose me." "I haven't chosen you yet. You have. You just don't want to admit it." He was right, and we both knew it. The next morning, we went to the hospital together. Sophia was sitting up, color back in her cheeks, her baby, a little girl, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Vincent knelt beside the bed, holding Sophia's free hand, tears streaming down his face as he apologized over and over. Dante had given him a choice, and Vincent had chosen right. He'd signed a contract committing to 5 years of work to repay the debt, had married Sophia in a small ceremony in her hospital room, and now looked at his daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," Sophia said to Dante, her eyes shining. "For finding him. For giving him a chance to be better." "Thank you for giving him that chance," Dante replied. Then, with uncharacteristic softness, he asked, "May I?" Sophia nodded, and Dante carefully took the baby, cradling her with surprising expertise. Something in my chest cracked, watching this dangerous man hold a newborn with such tenderness. "She's perfect," he murmured. "What's her name?" "Grace," Sophia said. "Because that's what you gave us, Grace." Later, in the car driving back to Manhattan, Dante held my hand and stared out the window. "I want that," he said quietly. "Someday. A family. Children who'll grow up knowing they're loved, protected. A wife who'll keep me human when the darkness gets too close." He looked at me. "I want it with you, Emma. We've known each other less than a month. I knew the moment you spoke Italian to me. The moment you looked at me without fear, even though you should have been terrified." His grip on my hand tightened. "Tell me you don't feel it too, this certainty." I did feel it. This terrifying, exhilarating certainty that Dante Salvatore was going to be my forever, whether I was ready for it or not. "I feel it," I whispered. The month passed in a blur of stolen moments and deliberate courtship. Dante took me to the opera, to tiny Italian restaurants in Brooklyn, to art galleries where he'd point out pieces he'd recovered from museums. He met my mother, charmed her completely, and listened with genuine interest when she told stories about her youth in Naples. He introduced me to his world slowly, carefully, making sure I understood what I was accepting. The violence, yes, but also the strange code of honor that governed it. The protection he offered to people the system had forgotten. The way he saw justice differently than the law did. I met his inner circle, men who'd die for him without question, but who teased him mercilessly about being soft for me. I learned to shoot, because he insisted I be able to protect myself. I became fluent not just in Italian, but in the language of his world. The careful phrases, the coded warnings, the hierarchy that kept everything running. And every night, he took me home to my apartment, kissed me until I couldn't breathe, then left before things could go further. "I'm courting you properly," he'd say with that dangerous smile. "When you come to me again, it'll be because you're absolutely certain. On the night the month ended, I made my decision. I packed a bag, arranged for my mother's transfer to Dante's penthouse, and showed up at his office just before closing. He looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face when he saw my suitcase. "I'm sure," I said simply. His chair crashed backward as he stood, crossing to me in 3 strides. "Say it. I need to hear you say it." "I choose you, Dante Salvatore. I choose this life, this world, this terrifying, beautiful thing between us." I gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. "I choose to be visible, to be seen, to be loved by you. And I choose to love you back, despite every logical reason I shouldn't." His kiss was a claiming, a celebration, a promise. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "Marry me," he said, not a question. Never a question with him. "You're supposed to ask. I'm not asking. I'm telling you that I'm going to marry you, make you mine in every legal and spiritual way possible, and spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice." He pulled a box from his desk drawer. He'd been carrying it for weeks, I realized. "But if you want the question, Emma Rossi, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The ring was perfect. Not ostentatious, not a display of wealth, just a simple platinum band with a diamond that caught the light like captured stars. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes to all of it." We married 3 months later in a small ceremony at a church in Brooklyn, the same church where his parents had married. Sophia and Vincent were there with baby Grace. My mother, lucid and happy, cried through the entire ceremony. Dante's men filled the pews, dangerous men in expensive suits who looked at their boss with something like awe as he promised to love and cherish me for the rest of his life. When the priest said I could kiss my bride, Dante pulled me close and whispered against my lips, "No more invisibility, Dolcezza. From now until forever, you're the center of my world." And as he kissed me, as applause erupted from people who'd become my family, I realized that being seen, truly seen, by the right person was worth any risk, any danger, any darkness. Because Dante Salvatore had looked at an invisible waitress and seen a queen, had taken a woman the world had forgotten and made her unforgettable. And I had looked at a monster and seen a man capable of devastating love. We were imperfect, complicated, probably doomed by conventional standards. But we were also fiercely devoted, completely honest, and utterly certain of each other. 6 months later, I stood in our penthouse looking out at the city that had once made me feel so small, Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind, his hand resting on my still flat stomach, where our daughter grew. "What are you thinking?" he murmured against my hair. "That I used to be invisible, that I used to think I'd always be struggling, always be alone." I turned in his arms, and now I'm so visible it's almost blinding. So loved it's almost frightening, so protected I'll never have to fear being alone again. "Never alone," he promised, his lips finding mine. "Never invisible, never forgotten. For as long as I breathe, you'll be seen, treasured, loved." And he kept that promise, every single day for the rest of our lives. The waitress who'd served an Italian Mafia boss and accidentally uncovered shocking truths had become the woman who'd tamed him, who'd made him human again, who'd chosen to love a monster and found a man instead. And in the end, that was the most shocking truth of all.